Just wanted to talk, that's all.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back, and welcome back to my buddy from the West Coast, Terrence Kehm. We call him TK. How you doing, TK? I'm getting a little tired of all this speculation.
Hello, sir. Yes. No, I know. Same here, man. Like, the winter meetings are all the way in Orlando. I'm hearing sort of murmurs, seeing Cashman speak, and I'm a little frustrated, to be honest, but I'm trying to hold out hope that maybe this is just a big mirage, and they're just kind of playing their tactics a little differently this winter.
I'm going to get the audience involved a lot tonight, and early and often, as they say. Mirkwood Studios says, wow, I have 2 videos in my queue. Pinstripe territory. Yankees have zero plan. And Fireside Yankees, who we respect, says, Brian Cashman reveals big offseason plan. And his take is that nobody really knows what's going on. And you know what? I think there's some truth to that. I'm leaning into no plan because I haven't seen an actual plan from the Yankees. Like last year, we were talking in the green room, the proverbial green room here. Last year, it was clear, right? Juan Soto was plan A. They wanted to re-sign Juan Soto. And when that didn't happen, they pivoted quickly to, Max Fried and Paul Goldschmidt and Cody Bellinger. This year, it doesn't seem like there's even a plan A. And I was watching Joel Sherman on the Pinstripe Post podcast, and he says that this front office always has a plan A plan B, a plan C. And I don't know what plan A looks like at this point. Do you?
No, I have no idea. And I think this kind of goes back to Trent Grisham accepting the qualifying offer because, you've heard murmurs about, they want to get under the $300 million threshold, and Cashman's kind of refuting that, and Michael Kay is saying that they're going to, and then Hal Steinbrenner with the, we're not sort of profitable comments. Like, everything is sort of really weird with their financial situation. No one really knows. I don't even know if they're going to go over it or not. I would think probably not, just because at this point they're at like 279, and that's before all the arbitration guys go on. So it's almost like they're too close to that point to really stay under it. But I feel like they really shot themselves in the foot there with the Trent Grisham qualifying offer. I really don't think they expected him to take it. And you have to ask yourself the question, Derek. You get a 4th round pick if he declines the offer, right? So are you valuing a 4th round pick at $22 million? For context, the first overall pick, I think, is slotted for about $12 or $13 million, which is almost half of that. So that's kind of ridiculous. And, he had a good season. Cashman's talking about how they think it's for real. Okay, show me something. But if it doesn't work out, dude, and you could have rolled out Spencer Jones if you didn't get Bellinger, and you could have at least tried that for a much cheaper option, the fan base is going to be pretty upset.
Yeah, it feels like almost a reverse slot machine, right? You put in a qualifying offer, and if you win, you get $22 million bill, all right? That's what we got for Grisham here. Look, I like Gishham as a player. I thought he had a lot of big hits last year, right? But there was a reason I put him on my Yankees who won't be back list. It's because it made very little sense to bring him back when Bellinger, one, is clearly the better player at this point. He's a better contact hitter. He was better defensively last year. He's got a better arm. And Dominguez is your top prospect. He's now essentially blocked, right, if you bring back Bellinger. So the Yankees kind of put themselves in between a rock and a hard place. And, I read the comments, and I see a lot of Yankees fans are kind of ticked that it's been nothing but speculation thus far. And that goes for me too, like the podcast. I can't report on news if there is no news, right? We need something to happen as fans just to make it interesting. And I feel like this has been one of the least interesting off seasons that the Yankees have had in years, not only in terms of like what they've actually done, but like the rumors aren't even really that fun. We were talking about Tatis. We've done an episode about Tatis. That feels like a stretch, not impossible, but feels like a stretch. Obviously, Paul Skeens and like Tariq Skubal. These are guys who are not impossible, but they're damn near impossible, and it's a stretch and gut your farm. It's just not the type of move that Cashman wants to make right now. I feel like Ahmed Rosario, could be a move. Those type of little pieces might be what Cashman's thinking, and that's not going to get anybody excited from like, I can't wait for the season to start kind of perspective.
No, you're not generating any juice with that. There's no juice to the winter meetings. The winter meetings are probably the most exciting time in the off season for baseball. I think it's one of the more exciting off seasons in sports, really, because a lot of things happen very quickly. And I'm sure they're having conversations right now down in Orlando, and a lot of teams are talking. But I look at the roster. I literally have the Fangraphs payroll situation pulled up right now. I look at the roster. I look at the salaries. What's movable on this team? Not much. Are you moving Ryan McMahon? Okay, he makes 15 million this year and he makes 15 million next year. You don't know if next year is going to be played, but he's a glove first third baseman with a little bit of pop. He's a lefty bat, which Cashman's already said that they're two left-handed. Can't move him. Obviously, Grisham, you can't move him either until at least like June. You can't move Stanton. You can't move. You're not moving Judge, obviously.
Right.
Jazz Chisholm and I guess probably Ben Rice and Dominguez would be, maybe even Austin Wells are your most movable pieces, but that's almost like you're taking two steps back to go one step forward if you're doing that. That doesn't make a lot of sense unless you're going to deal a Dominguez for a Tatis or something like that.
Let's talk about Jazz because his name has been brought up in trade rumors, and I had Frankie Baseball on and we were talking about it. And here's the thing about Jazz. You're going to have to replace him. I mean, and that's a 4.2 B word. I mean, this is a guy who went 30-30. This is not an easy guy to replace. Like, I don't think that there's another Jazz Chisholm just sitting out there that you can go get, for pennies on the dollar like they did with, Cody Bellinger for Cody Petit, right? I mean, if you go get Ketel Marte, it's going to cost you something, right? I mean, I think it makes more sense to just bring Jazz back and just hope he has a big year and gives you some production and stays healthy. If he plays 160 games, he's got a chance at 40-40. He's that type of player. And, somebody brought this up in the comments the other day that after he switched to that like 70% like swing mode, he hit 265. So he hit much better. He was struggling. Where do you land on the trade Jazz or do not trade Jazz bandwagon right now?
It really depends on a lot, but I think it's crazy. You could argue that Jazz Chisholm Jr., as presently constituted right now on the roster, other than Aaron Judge, is your best offensive player. You could make that argument. I think Ben Rice will kind of have something to do with that. I expect him to sort of take a step forward offensively and have a really good season. But, if I'm excluding Aaron Judge and the potential of Ben Rice, Jazz Chisholm is probably your best offensive player. So I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to move him. I would be in the camp of signing him to an extension. I got to see kind of what the numbers look like in terms of that. But Jazz is a guy that came in and there were questions about his makeup, if you will, and how he was going to mesh with the clubhouse. They all love him. It worked out great. He brings that sort of athleticism that this team desperately needed. He's got good pop. He's got a little edge to him. I think he's an irritant for other teams. Like if he is not on your team, you hate him, but when he's on your team, you love him. Kind of like Caballero, honestly. And I think also just his willingness to just switch positions willy-nilly. He was like, look, it's not ideal, but I'll still do it to help the team win. He's kind of got a winning attitude. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to move him. It's just for what? What are you getting back,
Right. Now, you were talking about a right-handed bat a little bit earlier today, and you brought up somebody who I think is very interesting. I'm going to put up on screen, and this is Austin Riley, who I think if the Braves could undo that $210 million contract extension, they probably would, which means you can probably get him for like a decent deal. This guy with 260, I mean, it's not super impressive, 309 on base percentage, but I mean, he's a right-handed hitter. He can play third base, so he can platoon with McMahon, right? I mean, this is a guy who has a little bit of pop. He hit 37 home runs a couple of years ago. He had 715 at-bats that year. He hasn't done that since. But what are your thoughts on Austin Riley?
Austin Riley, I think, is a really good player. I do agree with you that I think the Braves may have given him a contract that overvalues him a little bit, but that's just because the Braves give out these ridiculous team-friendly contracts. I mean, Ronald Acuna is making like less than $10 million right now. I don't know about a platoon situation. I feel that would be a really expensive platoon situation for two guys to play third.
Yep.
McMahon making 15, and I think Riley's making close to 20. But he is a really good player. He's a little bit less than average fielder. And he's kind of battled some injuries a little bit, but a lot of red in his savant there. He's got good exit velo, hits the ball hard.
Let me throw
I
this
think
at you,
that
TK. Do you think that the Braves would take back McMahon
Yeah, I was about to say that
Because like
you would
that
have
could
to switch him.
offset, you could offset some of the salary there. Like the Yankees are taking on way more money than they're giving up. I mean, in the short term, the Braves would have to pay for a player who's, probably not going to help them that much in
Yeah.
Ryan McMahon. But Riley could be a better fit for the Yankees long term at third base.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that it would be one of those situations where, I'll take your problem for my problem, even though I don't really think it's a problem, but just in that sort of realm. I just think that with McMahon, it would allow the Braves to at least have a third baseman, like a major league third baseman, until they're ready to kind of pivot into whatever their future is. I don't know what they have in their system, but I think for Riley, it does make a lot of sense. For the Yankees, you talk about, again, they're a little bit too left-handed, and you're flipping a left-handed bat for a right-handed bat. If you look at Austin Riley's previous seasons, he's had some really, really good years. 2-3 years ago, he was a better defenseman. I think, funny enough, I noticed that when Ron Washington was with the Braves, he was a way better defender than he is now. And that's a guy that got picked up again. And I've been screaming from the hilltops that I wanted the Yankees to pick him up as a third base coach, and they just never do. I don't get it. Everybody's defense always improves when he is their like third base coach or their infield coach or whatever. You see the drills on YouTube that he would do, and he's kind of a defensive wizard. So I think that it's a little bit of like the talent's there. You just kind of have to unlock it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Somebody else that you brought up. Now, this is Yoan Moncada. He is a switch hitter. And I've heard some rumblings behind the scenes from some of the people that I've talked to, that used to play in the major leagues, that he doesn't really like baseball all that much, that he's kind of like one of these, Anthony Rendon type of players, or like Jacoby Ellsbury or Carl Pavano, where any excuse to get out of playing, he will use it. And now he still does barrel the ball up pretty good, and he still draws walks. This guy was a super prospect at one point. Like, I wanted this guy as an international prospect more than anything. He ended up going to the Red Sox, and they moved him as part of the Chris Sale acquisition. Yeah. And he's bounced around a little bit, still just 30 years old, but not a good fielder. I'm not super high on Yoan Moncada. He wouldn't be my first pick. I do want to bring up Miguel Andujar. We've talked about him a little bit. I think he slots in nicely because, he can play left field, and he would be a platoon Price, basically, with Dominguez. He's somebody that fans like. He was excitable. I mean, he's a clubhouse chemistry type of guy. Obviously, he got along well with Judge, but he also had some complaints with the team that he wasn't playing as much, and he had rumbled about wanting to possibly be traded and so forth. But he hit .318 with 10 home runs and 321 at bats last year, obviously much better against lefties. Still got a good arm. What are your thoughts on Miguel Andujar?
Yeah, I think it's kind of valid for him to complain about playing time. He kind of burst on the scene in 2018, almost wins Rookie of the Year, hits like .297, breaks the doubles record for the franchise record, and then Gio Urshela kind of comes up, and that's it. He's done. Which I think was like a little bit unfair. The Yankees, they didn't really have a place for him to play, but I feel like in that sense, it's kind of, this goes back, dude, this is like classic Yankees in the Judge era. This goes back to, everyone talks about, there's that joke where Tarek Skubal, I'll give you Clint Frazier and Miguel Andujar for him, because that's what everybody was saying at the time. Like, we don't have somewhere for these guys to play, so trade them. And that's kind of what's happening with Spencer Jones and Jasson Dominguez right now. Watch, in 5 years, he'll be saying the same joke. But I understand why he was annoyed, and you better have a role for him if he comes back. He's a guy, all right, look, is it a flashy name? Not really. He doesn't strike out a lot. Okay. Fielding, he has good arm strength, but he can't really field that well. But I mean, would I be upset about it? No, but the only thing I would be upset about is like he comes back and he's already in the same kind of bench platoon sort of situation. Like, this is a guy who should be a starter he was just on the Reds, but he should be a starter on a team like that, and he's earned that. I think it'd be a bit unfair to be like, hey, come back and sit the bench, dude. He'd be upset.
So I'm going to bring up the trade board that I had with Frankie Baseball the other day. I mean, just some notable names. This is from Spot Track. They had Fernando Tatis. We've talked about him at length. We would both love it, but it seems a little bit unrealistic. Severino, somebody you brought up at the trade deadline. You know what? I like Severino, but I think he's one of these guys that is going to be a starter. And once everybody's healthy for the Yankees, he would have to move to the bullpen. I don't think he wants to do that. We've seen some Sandy Alcantara rumors out there. I tell you what, he looked good towards the end of the season there. His fastball looked. I was hoping they would pick him up at the deadline. Like his stuff was looking all the way back. Alec Boehm, what are your thoughts on Boehm?
Alec Boehm, I think I kind of see it as another one of those guys of does he love baseball? I think I kind of questioned that with him too. There was that little thing where um, he I don't know, he made like an error in Philly and they were booing him, and then somebody read his lips and he was kind of saying like "F this place" or something like that.
I mean, to be
So
fair, he
I
was
don't.
in Philly.
To be fair, if 50,000 people were booing you, would you kind of react the same way? Probably, but I'm kind of like whatever. I think with him, again, doesn't strike out a lot. He doesn't walk a lot, but the fielding is really just not there. It wouldn't be a name that would really move me at all. Uh, there aren't like a whole lot of names. Honestly, the only name, Derek, that's I love this is Donaldson available. That's Art Vandelay and Josh
Yeah.
Donaldson available. But really, Derek, I'm gonna just sit here and say I don't really think the Yankees are gonna do that much, and it's really frustrating and disappointing to say that. But I think it goes back to what is movable on this team. Not much. And if they're talking about they want to stay under the $300 million threshold, what are you really going to sign out there?
Yeah, this is one of the situations where like a lot of the bad contracts are coming back to bite them. I mean, you're still paying LeMahieu, right? I mean, they're still paying for guys who are not on the club anymore. You're paying too much for Ryan McMahon.
Yep.
So they put themselves in this situation. And if there is any upside to the Yankees spending, they do have some names coming off the books in the next few years, right? And when they have that kind of situation coming up in the past, they have wasted no time. Like as soon as A-Rod's big contract was over, they went out and got Giancarlo Stanton, right? Like they're not afraid to commit money because they're going to continue to make money. But you wonder, is the looming lockout slash strike affecting, is Hal trying to artificially keep his payroll down so he can be like, look, we can't even afford to play in this ballpark because we got to pay this big bill and we got to keep these salaries under control. I mean, do you think that there's any of that? Are you buying into conspiracy theories?
Dude, cry me a river. If he sold the Yankees tomorrow, they'd probably sell for over $10 billion.
I
Like,
agree.
stop. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it because Hal spends money. Like, let me be clear. He's consistently in the top 5, if not top 3 in the league in terms of payroll. It's really comes down to is your money being spent wisely? And that falls on Brian Cashman in the front office. We've said it chapter and verse, but when you're giving, Ryan McMahon $16 million this year and next year, and Stanton is barely hitting his own weight. I mean, he's had big moments in the playoffs, obviously, and he's been solid, but he's making what, 29 this year, 25 next year, and then he has a buyout. The only move to me, the Soto move, if you will, of this winter is trading for Fernando Tatis if he's going to be available and if the Yankees have the assets to get him. I don't know if, I'm sure the Red Sox, the Mets, the Blue Jays, like, the Dodgers. Actually, he hates the Dodgers. He wouldn't go there. But like any team with assets is going to be interested, obviously. But to me, Fernando Tatis is the only move that's going to be splashy enough and get the juice in the fan base going enough where if this offseason is you brought back Grisham on a qualifying offer and you got like a bullpen arm or two, fire Brian Cashman night's going to be opening day.
Yeah, I said the same
Yeah.
thing. So,
Yeah.
you know what? It's funny. I think about every year, like who's going to be that guy that we can't wait to see them working out in pinstripes for the first time. We can't wait to see him strolling into camp, with the bag from their old team and getting into their Yankees gear and warming up. Right now, I mean, who's that guy? Ahmed Rosario? Is he going to be our big offseason reacquisition? I think Fernando Tatis would excite the fan base. He's a reasonably priced superstar whose contract will expire in his mid-30s. And he's a right-handed bat who plays the outfield, and he's a good defender, and he's a good base runner. He's fast. He's got a good arm. Like, I think he fits in a lot of ways, and I think that, Michael K may be trying to do the same thing that we do, which is like keep people tuned in, right? But it in this instance, I could see him being right as like a splashy move. He is an insider much more so than I am, but I don't think he's getting this from the team. I think it's more like speculation. I think it's one of those things where it's like the bosses are like, what are we going to talk about with Yankees content today? Let's throw Tatis back out there.
No, I think it's one of those, if there's smoke, there's fire. What's really probably happening is I think there's a lot of smoke in terms of the ownership situation in San Diego. And as a result, they may be trying to offload some bigger contracts on their team. And since Jackson Merrill kind of emerged for them as another young outfield guy for them, I think that maybe they'd be a little bit more willing to move on from Fernando Tatis. I think they're crazy if they do that. He is their franchise player, face of the franchise. If I was the GM of San Diego, I said no chance. But if he's available, I think if you're the Yankees, you got to do everything you can do to acquire him. My only thing would be with that, it's like, would you give up? Yeah, I think you'd give up the Martian for him. It makes sense, but I wouldn't give up the Martian and Ben Rice. I'd say you get
Yeah,
one of them. You can't have
I
both of
agree.
them.
I'm
Yeah,
okay with trading Dominguez if it means bringing back Tatis, because Tatis is in his
yeah.
prime. I mean, he's going to be great. He's going to lock up left field for a while, right? And then you solve the right-handed bat problem. Now, I don't want to give up Dominguez for somebody like Steven Kwan, or even block him with somebody like Steven Kwan, who just doesn't bring the WAR value. So, I mean, that's kind of where we're at right now, guys. I wanted to share a couple of things here with my friend Terrence and with the audience. So we got some new merch here. We got the Schlitt Happens hoodie, which is
Badass.
now available, NYYdesigns.shop. I'll zoom in on that for you. Obviously, a moment from his big performance in the postseason. We've also got it as a mug, which we know you guys love your fun mugs. And Donnie Baseball. I made a Don Mattingly shirt with his autograph.
Shame. It's a
He should have
shame that
been
he's
in.
not part of this organization, man. It's a shame.
And you can get all this at nyydesigns.shop. TK, let's wrap it up. We got a couple of voicemails here. Let's start with this call about the Cashman interview.
Hey, Derek. This is Joe from Connecticut. Just had a couple thoughts. I've been watching the Brian Cashman interviews at the winter meetings on Yes and the MLB Network, and I just think, like, this guy, he seems like he's in a good mood, these interviews, which is, I guess that's a good thing. But you could just tell the game is kind of, he is a good GM, but the game has kind of passed him by. Kind of like how, like, Bill Belichick with the Patriots, it kind of just passed him by. You know, like, the things he was saying, he kind of just thinks the team is good, but, like, they don't necessarily, like, they don't want to be great anymore.
I love the call. First of all, I do kind of agree with that last part where, like, they do want to be good, they want to be in contention, but they don't have that killer instinct like they had under George. And, you know, I think that a lot of, I guess, the pushback that the organization gets about, like, you know, oh, we miss George. You don't necessarily miss, like, the chaotic, like, fire the manager every 5 minutes and, like, throw the team into disarray and get suspended for, you know, doing unscrupulous things. But he had that desire to win that was obvious. Like, he wore it on his sleeve. And I think that's what people miss a lot about, you know, the execs we have now.
Yeah, that's, I think, true. I mean, he was also a guy that wanted to trade Mariano Rivera and Derek Jeter. And believe it or not, Stick Michael and Brian Cashman were the ones that talked him out of it. So they did, to a certain extent, kind of save the dynasty, if you will. But yeah, that was kind of washed over what was the previous concept of George Steinbrenner of threatening to move the team to New Jersey when the Mets were good in the 80s. And it's funny, it goes back to the episode of Seinfeld when George gets hired by the Yankees and he's like cussing out George Steinbrenner because at the time this was previous, hire this man. That seems hilarious. But it's previous to the dynasty, so that was the perception of George Steinbrenner in New York. But I think with that, there is got to be this sort of happy medium with the old school way of thinking and the new school way of thinking, because the game is different now. The game is totally different. There are more teams that can spend money. There are more teams with assets. It's not just the Yankees and everybody else now. And the league has definitely caught up to the Yankees. The thing that I get annoyed about the most with the with the regime in right now is this sort of arrogance that it's not the case, when I'm like, it totally is, right? They talk about, this was like a couple years back, it was like, well, the league is like caught up to us. No, league surpassed the Yankees at this point.
Sure.
It's not just you and the rest of everybody. It's just that the Yankees are now grouped into the big market teams, and they can spend money just as much as the Yankees can. It's just whether or not they spend money better than the Yankees can.
Yeah, I think they're going to be over 300, like a few people have said in the comments. But, as we saw this year, you can lose to a team that has an even lower payroll because they're constructed better. And that was the case with the Blue Jays this year. They beat us because they were a more well-constructed team for less money. So, we got another voicemail here, and then we'll wrap it up.
Hey, Derek, just calling in. I'm just disappointed that Donnie Baseball didn't get voted in by that Veterans Committee today. I think he's so deserving in his career as a player, and also even what he's done after that. So,
yeah, I was disappointed. I was ready for him to get in. I was getting amped up to do a show, and I was gonna celebrate and all that stuff. But maybe another year. But in all honesty, his stats don't compare to a lot of other guys, and he just had too short of a peak. The injuries, unfortunately, like the best ability is availability, right? And he was injured a lot after the '89 season.
It's funny though. Like, I always hear people talk about, in the media at least, that they can't believe that Don Mattingly is not in the Hall of Fame. They would go, well, when you ask yourself, is Don Mattingly a Hall of Famer? Yes, he's a Hall of Famer, and I'm almost like, don't you guys vote on this though, on the committee? So who's saying no? He's got to be. Look, if this is the weird thing about him though, is that if he played one more season and he won a World Series in the last year of his career, he's in the Hall of Fame. It's just that one season. So are we going to penalize him for,
I don't know about
that one season?
I don't know about that.
It's got to be. I think it makes a difference just having the ring.
Winning a World Series makes a difference. But I mean, still, let's say he played one more year. He hits 8 home runs. I mean, he hit 7 home runs in his final year. He gets maybe another extra 150 hits. I think well, we'll agree to disagree. Maybe he wins his 10th Gold Glove. Maybe that makes a difference. But Tino was a big reason they won the division that year,
yes.
and didn't have a big postseason that year. But anyway. TK, hopefully we get some baseball news tonight. Hopefully we get some Yankees news. Again, thanks for joining. Everybody like and subscribe. Go get your merch at nydesigns.shop. You can also go to pinstripeterritoryshop.com to get specific merch for the show, where you can get the show logo on hoodies, hats, all that stuff. And right now they have a promo. If you use the code HOLIDAY, you get a little bit of a discount. So go check that out. TK, thanks so much. Be back when we get the Fernando Tatis trade update here. We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.
If you enjoyed this content, please hit that like button and subscribe. Check out nydesigns.shop for some great merch. Support our sponsors. It helps keep the show going. And you can find us on all major audio platforms, so be sure to subscribe there too. But most importantly, come back again soon. We'll see you next time.